So you just want to see how close.
Hello.
Okay, so you don't want to put your
Hello.
mouth directly. Exactly.
Hello.
So you want it to sort of point to your throat. Exactly.
Hello.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
And you can,
Okay.
you can move it, but yeah. So some people don't know you shouldn't speak right on it.
Okay.
And the only thing to be careful is if you're using the letter P a lot, it pops.
Oh, okay.
Everybody does that,
All
even
right.
very experienced
Doesn't matter.
people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay.
Good morning and welcome. Beautiful day, huh? We gathered this morning, some of us here in the sanctuary and some of us via the wonders of the internet. And I'm glad you're here, however it is that you are joining us. If you have been with us once before or a few times, or you are regularly here, welcome again this morning. And if you are here for the first time, a very special welcome to you today. There are listening devices available in the rear of the sanctuary for those who might want those. My name is Myra Aaronson, and I am one of a team of worship associates who have the honor and the pleasure of working with our interim minister, the Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown, our director of Lifespan Ministries, Kirsten Hunter, and all the rest of our wonderful staff, some of whom you see, others whom are behind the scenes to bring worship services to you each week. And we have a brand new staff member who you will meet next week, who will be helping with technology and events. Our congregation continues to thrive due to everyone's efforts on the staff and the volunteers who continue to give their time, treasure, and talent to keep us going in these very challenging times. The gift of music will come to us today from our pianist Susan Adams, our guest musician Joe McEachern, the South Church Choir, and of course our Director of Music Ministries, Johnny Pfeiffer. The time for all ages is offered by Kirsten Hunter, and following that, the children are, as always, welcome to stay in the sanctuary with their families or go downstairs for some activities. And huzzah, if you would like to socialize after the services, we will be having fellowship out on the porch, on the portico, I guess we call it, in church language. Hooray. So there will be some water and lemonade and cookies, I think, something simple. And you'll hear more about the maypole that's out there also today. So we have some announcements, I think.
We do. Hopefully, many of you will dance around the maypole today. If you came in through the front, you saw it out there ready for us. It is May Day, and we are going to be doing a maypole dance after the service. And so just a couple details about that. After the service ends, Joe McEachern is here, and he's going to lead us out with some music for the maypole. And what I'd ask is, as he's leading us out, that people start to stomp their feet, because that's how we're going to let the kids downstairs know that it's time to come outside. So when you see Joe moving towards the door, start stomping. It'll be our way of knocking on the door down to those folks down there. Today is the last day to purchase a bloom for the Pocket Garden Tour. List your name, your business name, or the name of someone you would like to honor. It's a $25 donation, and it's really helpful to getting all of the printing and everything done for the Pocket Garden Tour, which is such an incredible event and such a wonderful fundraiser for our community. Next Sunday is May 8th. It's Mother's Day. It is the first day of candidating week. Our candidate minister will be here. There is so much going on, and in addition to all of those things, our senior youth are going to be selling Mother's Day flowers and chocolates and some other variety of small gifts that you can purchase from them as a fundraiser for their service learning journey, which is happening in June. We will be traveling down to West Virginia to again visit the community in McDowell County that our church has been to 3 other times. So this will be our 4th return down to McDowell County, West Virginia. Shared Ministry is still accepting applications for associates, fellowship associates, worship associates, pastoral associates, learning associates, and social justice associates. It is a really, really great way to engage in those ministries. If you're feeling like you have a call to kind of deepen into any one of those areas of ministry here at South Church, I encourage you to consider applying. And I believe they'll have a table in the narthex. I'm looking at Laura, she's nodding, that's correct. So you can find Laura Montville or other shared ministry associates to talk about that opportunity. And finally, as has been the case for the last 8 weeks, I think, there is again in Market Square at 4 o'clock a vigil and gathering for the people of Ukraine. You are very welcome and encouraged to be there at 4 o'clock today. Last thing about Candidate Week, many of you probably have received a mailing already. There was a mailing that went out last week that included the beginnings of the schedule of what all church gatherings will be happening throughout the week. There's a mix of Zoom opportunities as well as in-person opportunities. We are trying really hard to meet people at their comfort level to make sure people have an opportunity to interact with the candidate minister, but also stay in their zone of safety where they feel comfortable doing so. So you should pay attention to that on the schedule. It'll be specific about what kinds of settings it is, whether it's in person, whether it's on Zoom, and there are a few that will involve food where masks will be off. And please just follow your own instincts around where you're comfortable with all of that. The full schedule will be posted on our website this Tuesday, I believe. We're going to aim for Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. So check out the website to see the full schedule of events. And that same page is where we will post links for any of the all-church Zoom gatherings after they happen. So if you have a crazy busy week and you can't be anywhere, you can go on to our website and find the recording after the fact and at least follow up and hear some of those conversations and things. The candidate minister will be here on the 8th and again on the 15th preaching. So those are great times to be here at church or joining us online. And on the 8th after the service, there is a Q&A following a social hour followed by a Q&A with the candidate minister. So that day will be a wonderful day to have many of you here. If you have questions, you can ask me. You can ask anybody from the planning committee, Tana Clues, Alice O'Trainer, Joanne Piazzi, Alyssa Murphy, Kevin Leahy. Let's see how I can just reach out and we'll give you the information you need. Thank you so much for being here today.
If you are watching us remotely, I invite you to light your own candle at home or wherever you are while we light the chalice in the sanctuary. Nurturing beauty is this month's theme, and the question is this: how can we nurture beauty in response to this time of change and challenge? I offer this excerpt from Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Our community is filled with beauty. When you open the door to greet me, that's where beauty begins. When you share with me what's important to you, beauty is there as I listen. When we join hands to practice compassion, beauty's heart blooms like a flower. When we teach or learn or work for justice, beauty abounding sparks joy in all. Let's light the chalice for beauty now. The beauty we seek, the beauty we share, the beauty we nurture together. Now please stand as you are able and join me in reciting our mission statement, which is in your order of service and on your screen. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. Thank you. So it's May 1st. I don't know how that happened, but it's halfway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, or almost. It's May Day, it's Beltane, and it's International Workers' Day, an important day in the history of the labor movement. And so I'm going to talk about worms. Perfect, you can laugh. It's also World Laughter Day. So I'm a worm farmer, small scale. I have 3 bins of red wigglers in my kitchen. As far as animal husbandry goes, caring for worms is pretty easy, even though there are thousands of them. Of course, they don't all have names, as they all look the same, except for their size. These worms, of course, are not pets. That would be weird. These are working worms. They are employed, so to speak, in vermicomposting. Their job is to ingest kitchen waste and turn it into castings, essentially worm poop, which is used to amend and improve the structure of the garden soil and provide nutrients to the plants in the garden, which will then provide food to us, which will create waste for the worms. And so it goes. I love my worms. I do. I talk to them, I pamper them. I know they don't give any thought to me whatsoever. But I love the alchemy, the transmutation of waste into gold. I feel that I am nurturing beauty and that I am nurtured by participating in this symbiotic relationship. It benefits us both. We are together in the interconnected web of all existence. I feel magic every time I open the bins once or twice a week to feed the worms, check the moisture level, refresh their shredded paper, and harvest the rich, dark, and surprisingly completely odor-free castings. It is a beautiful thing, and it feels sacred to me. As does the house finch nest, which was built into the Christmas wreath. I can't say those 2 words together. The wreath. We never took off our side door. The beauty of what is transpiring right now in that nest fills me with awe. That I can nurture that beauty by not using that door and getting into my house another way is an incredible privilege. This kind of beauty is so much more meaningful than physical beauty. Christina Mittermeier and Paul Nicklin, conservation photographers, said this in an opinion piece for the New York Times. Beauty has less to do with material things around us and more to do with how we spend our time on the earth. We create true beauty only when we channel our energy to achieve a higher purpose, build strong communities, and model our behavior so that others can find inspiration to do beauty by each other and our planet. Beauty has nothing to do with the latest makeup or fashion trends, and everything to do with how we live on the planet and act to protect it. So in these times of challenge, let us all find ways to nurture beauty. Pick up a piece of litter, hang a hummingbird feeder, smile and wave at a child, and join the chorus as they sing hymn 163, For the Earth Forever Turning, which is in your gray hymnal.
Okay, so I would love to invite anyone who'd like to hear this story this morning for up closer is welcome to come up and join me. The story I'm telling this morning is a story that it's modified. It's my own sort of take on a story that was written by Starhawk about the origin of May Day. It's not the only version of the story of the origin of May Day. There's a whole lot of history, as we were hearing from Myra, about this day, and a whole lot of colliding holidays. Yes? Yeah. Say that again. Where's Jen? It's a great question. Jen is off today. She's not here today. I'm sorry, you're stuck with me. I tried. But she is here in spirit. She is living in these flowers on my head and in my green tights and in all of your hearts. But she's not here. Yeah. But it is May Day, so there's a lot of Jen's spirit around. And this story I'm going to tell you today is a story about how May Day came to be. Once upon a time, there was a spring when no flowers bloomed. April came, just like it always does. The weather started to get warmer, but no crocuses, no daffodils opened their smiley faces. There were no hyacinth and those smelly, smelly flowers that waft in the air, no magnolia blooms on the trees. There was just no flowers. And worse than that, do you have a question?
Was it a drought?
It wasn't a drought. There was no explanation. There was just no flowers. And worse than that, nobody seemed to notice. Almost nobody. Only one person, a little girl named Vivian, noticed that there were no flowers. She was walking home from school, and she was like, it's like April 15th, there should be flowers by now. She started asking people she saw on the sidewalk as she was walking, and it was like people didn't even hear her. She would ask, and they just kind of smile at her and walk by. And she kept walking home, and she was like, people, can you see me? I'm right here, I'm asking a question. Nobody answered. She got home. Her brother was at home. He was playing a video game, and she said, where are all the flowers? And he said, well, I can get flowers on my game. I can put them on the screen. What do you need flowers for if you got virtual flowers? She rolled her eyes, and she went into the kitchen. And her parents were in the kitchen. They were starting to get ready for dinner. And she said, do you notice that there are no flowers? And her mom and dad, just kind of like everybody in the town, didn't say anything. And then her dad looked up and said, hey, honey, you feeling okay? And I know. And Vivian was like, it wasn't the first time that Vivian felt like people didn't really notice her or listen to her. It wasn't the first time that she felt like sometimes she would talk and people would just kind of look right past her. And it just felt crummy. And she was worried about the flowers, and it felt crummy that no one else was worried, and so she just left. She went out of the house. She started to run. She got to the edge of her neighborhood, and there was a meadow, and she ran in the meadow, and she just felt that sadness and that feeling of upset kind of climbing up in her. And she collapsed down on the grass, and she started to cry. She said, no one listens to me. No one's worried about the flowers. I don't feel loved. And then she heard a little voice that said, that is exactly how I feel. And she looked around, and just in front of her, about a foot in front of her, was a dandelion. Kind of a weepy-looking dandelion. His petals were sort of sagging, and its stalk was a little bent. It didn't look like it had much more time to be in bloom. But there it was, bright yellow dandelion. And she smiled and she said, dandelion, you're beautiful. Where are all the flowers? And dandelion said, well, I don't know about beautiful, but yeah, I'm wondering the same thing. It seems like some kind of love in the world has disappeared, and the flowers just decided not to bloom. And she said, well, this is awful. I don't know, what do we do? And Dandelion said, well, if you can find the right kind of love, maybe the flowers will come back. And she said, well, what's the right kind of love? And Dandelion didn't quite answer her. Instead, Dandelion said, do you really think I'm beautiful? And she said, yes, I do. You're absolutely beautiful. And even though it's hard to imagine, Dandelion smiled. She could see a smile break out on the petals. And then the petals of the dandelion fell to the ground. And she looked kind of sad at the dandelion petals that were just now scattered on the grass. But she wiped her tears and she said, okay, I'm going to find the right kind of love. And she headed off. She went home. She went into the house. And when she walked in, her parents were really relieved to see her. Where have you been? We didn't know where you went. We were worried about you. And that felt kind of good. She felt like, okay, they notice me. They notice me. And she said, well, I have a question for you. And her mom and dad said, yes. And even her brother had looked up. He'd paused his video game. He paused it and looked up, and he'd noticed she was there. I know, that's serious. And she said to all three of them, do you love me? And her mom and dad said, yes, of course we love you. And her brother said, I guess so. And she said, then I need you to do me a favor. Come with me. And she took them to the center of their town. And as they were walking, they passed some friends. She saw some friends from school, and she said, come along with us. And so there was about 6 of them. They got to the center of town, and they stood right in the middle of the square. And she said, we need to hold hands. And so they all held hands in a circle. And she said, I want you to think about love. And so they all held hands, and they thought about love. Even her brother, he kind of rolled his eyes, but he held hands, and he thought about love, and they stood there. But nothing happened. She looked around. There were still no flowers. And she said, it must not be the right kind of love. We need more people. And as she was saying that, the mail carrier had just finished her route, and she looked over and saw them, and she said, I'd like, what are you all doing? And they invited her into the circle, so the mail carrier came into the circle, and the librarian had just come out from her shift at the library, came and joined the circle. There were some men coming out of an office that came and joined the circle, some women that were working on the side of the road that came over and joined the circle, and slowly but surely the circle got pretty big. And Vivian said, you have to think about love. And everyone in the circle was thinking about love, and she was holding hands, and she was looking around, and it still didn't seem like it was doing anything. And she said, it's not working. It's not the right kind of love. And then she felt a squeeze on her hand, and the woman standing next to her said, it's not about the right kind of love. And she looked up, and this woman standing next to her had all the spring flowers you could imagine on her head. And she smiled, and her face was like silver ripples. She was beautiful, but in kind of a mysterious way. And Vivian said, who are you? And she said, I am the May Queen. You called me here with your circle of love. And I'm here to tell you that the secret for bringing back the flowers is to love in all the ways you can. You never have all the kinds of love in a circle. But when you stand together and you hold one another in love, magic things can happen. And she shook her hair, and all these ribbons fell out of her hair, all different colors, and she started handing them to people. And it was like she knew what was in their hearts. She handed a ribbon to the mail carrier and said, this is for the love of bringing people letters. And she brought one to Vivian's brother and said, this is for the love of brothers and sisters. And she brought a ribbon to the parents and said, this is for the love of your children and the love of your grandparents and the love of your uncle and your auntie and your neighbors and your friends. And then she started giving out more love. She gave people love for being creative, and love for being inventive, and love for challenging things that are wrong, for speaking truth to power. She gave people love for organizing with one another to make things different. She gave out so many different kinds of love, and everyone held these ribbons. And then she asked Vivian to pretend she was hugging the air. And so Vivian did. She kind of went like this. And in her arms, a silver ring appeared. And then, in the middle of the circle, a big pole appeared. And the May Queen said, "Take this ring and tie all of your ribbons around the ring and put it on the top of that pole. That pole represents the tree of blooms and life and love. And when you put the ribbons up there and you dance around, the flowers will return." And sure enough, they did. They all danced around this giant maypole in the middle of their town, and as they danced, the apple blossoms came out. The daffodils popped their heads up from the ground. The magnolia blooms filled the air with perfume. And all of the little dandelions popped up their heads and shined their yellow faces to the sun. Yes, Sasha. Well, it's a great question, because I did say it was April 15th, and now we celebrate May Day on May 1st. But, you know, I think there's some flexibility in this season. So anyway, I don't know. It's possible I ad-libbed the April 15th and I wasn't thinking through to the end of my story. Next time you're going to edit for me. And after our service today, we're going to go out and we're going to dance around that maypole, and I hope you can think about a special kind of love you're going to bring to that circle. And right now, we're going to sing you down to go have some fun downstairs. Oh, but listen with your ears. At the end of service, we're going to stomp so you all know it's time to come outside.
They had a lot of good questions, those kids. Each week at the Offertory, we combine our resources to support South Church, the building, the staff, the congregants, and the greater community. To support the greater community in an effort coordinated by our social justice associates and voted on by the whole congregation, each month we share our collection with a different nonprofit organization. This month we support the Lovering Health Center in Greenland, and here's Brigit Ordway to tell you about what they do.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm Brigit Ordway. I've been at the Lovering Health Center, used to be the Feminist Health Center, so some of you may remember us from our old name. I've been there for 38 years. So I came in my 20s, I'm now in my 60s. I was a young mother, now I'm an old grandmother. I want to say that the Lovering Health Center has been providing sexual and reproductive health services to folks in the Seacoast community for 42 years. We are a welcoming health center, serving all ages, all genders, and all sexual orientations we in a supportive environment with medical excellence. And it's our passion to advocate, respect, and honor everyone's right to make their own decisions about sexual and reproductive health care. We provide a lot of services. We provide well woman GYN, yeah, I brought a list because there's so many. Well woman GYN care, contraception, preconception counseling, pregnancy testing, pregnancy options counseling, STI testing and treatment, HIV testing, PrEP for the prevention of HIV, medication and in-clinic abortions, ultrasound, and gender-affirming hormone therapy. So we do a lot. I want to thank all of you because it is the community that has kept us going. For these 42 years, we have faced an amazing amount of different challenges, both political and personal and all of that, and yet this, not just this group, but the group around this whole seacoast is what's kept us going. And I can't thank this community enough. You're the folks who keep us going. And we started out, right, I think over here, right? In that little pumpkin-colored building. We were there until 1987 when we moved to Greenland. And that was with the help of the community. So thank you so much, and I hope you'll come visit. We'll be having some open houses, so get in touch, because we'd love to have you come and see us. Okay?
Thank you. Oh, you took my paper. So you can donate in many ways. You can use our new mobile app called Vanco. You can give via the donate link on our website. You can send a check in the mail to our office at 73 Court Street in Portsmouth. Or, of course, you can use the collection plate, which is about to be passed. The offering will now be gratefully received. And in the words of the Reverend Kayla Parker, may we give in love and in hope.
Let us be in an attitude of prayerful reflection. This morning I would call attention to those words, "Oh, we give thanks for this precious day." Sounded different to me today. I don't know if it's because of being in this precious place or the beautiful weather, but those words, "Oh, we give thanks for this precious day," and for one another. Oh, we give thanks for being here, for being able to share stories and laughter, hear about things happening in the community, hear about the good works that happen in agencies, listening to music, for our youth who keep us on our toes. So much we have to give our thanks for. And know here that you're not alone, that we hold you in our heart always, that you are loved, be you a dandelion or a rhododendron or a daffodil. We appreciate you being here. We care for you, and you never have to be alone. We take time each Sunday to light candles of joy and of concern, and we invite you to come forward if you wish to light a candle, knowing that sending up your thought of joy or your sorrow is a way that this community cares for one another. If you have a concern that you wish us to know about, please be in touch with the office on Friday or with me so that I can make an announcement during this time, and also write something down, and our pastoral associates will be in touch with you. It is so good to be together. We give thanks. I invite anyone who wishes to come forward now to light a candle of joy or concern. And I encourage you to go up the middle and down the sides and back up the middle. So, thank you. It was nice earlier to be sitting here with the door open and watching people stop. They would just stop and look at the maypole and go like, do I dare go into that place? Then we shut the door, and I don't know what people are doing or thinking right now. Yeah, they're probably out there dancing, right? You know, I wouldn't believe it either, but the traditions, rites, and practices of May Day were very instrumental in my formation as a Unitarian Universalist minister, and in my getting more in touch with the Irish part of my identity. My maiden name is Stowell, which is very English, but the other part of it is Fay, which is very Irish. I should have awoken and understood that Irish part, would have brought up about worker justice, the International Workers' Union Day, because part of my family did have to send some of their young men over to America to get jobs and to earn money and pave the way to get other relatives to escape from Ireland. It did a little bit. It made me a little bit aware of the worker movement that is May 1st, as those family members were often early members of unions and the protest and were met by signs, "No Irish need apply." And many of them went on to become part of unions and to protest for fair housing and wages and, well, just fairness in general, which is probably part of my roots. But for me, the immersion in the May Day festivities brought up to me my Irish culture and values of rites and rituals. Now, I have shared with you that for 18 years prior to becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister, I had worked in the alcohol drug treatment field. It was during that time that I received both my associate's and my bachelor's degrees, divorced my first husband, re-met my second one after not having seen him for 10 years, flew in an airplane for the very first time, was elected and then re-elected to the UUA Board of Trustees, one of their youngest ever board members, mourned the murder of my sister, the death of my father, served on the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, the UUA Finance Committee, Racial Equity Task Force, among other committees, was laid off after making it through 3 owners of the hospital that I worked at, each increasingly unable to keep the small hospital I was working at afloat, and certainly with not the compassion and proper treatment of addicts and their families, and met by the numerous health changes that treated addicts as if they were expendable members of society. And all of this is where I determined that I really, really wanted to become a Unitarian Universalist minister before I died, if that was at all possible. When I lost that job, I was 40, and I remember saying, okay, you're 40 years old. You got choices. It's now or never. Either you're going to go into the ministry or you're going to keep working in the field where you have a reputation and you can go and find something, or you can step into the ministry, and I did. And those 18 years were some of the best and some of the worst times in my life. And all the experiences led me to where I am today. So I'd never take them back. One of the persons who lived in the treatment hospital that I worked in was a retired Anglican priest. I mean, a real Anglican priest. Father Dick was from England, where he had been ordained in the Church of England. His mother was one of the first suffragettes in England, and she was arrested on numerous occasions for inciting riots. He grew up in England, but came to the States and began serving Episcopal congregations in New England until his retirement. Throughout many of his ministries, he ran into trouble because of his alcoholism. He and his wife were one of the first patients at Knockegg Hospital in Ashburnham, which had opened in 1960, and it was one of only 3 early hospitals in New England set up to treat addicts. His wife left after 10 days to be with the children, and he stayed for the recommended 30 days. And when his treatment ended, he called home and said to his wife that I'm staying at Knockegg Hospital, thank you very much. I am happier than I've ever been, and I'm going to do a different ministry here, and I'm going to recover here. And he stayed at Knockegg Hospital for over 20 years. In fact, doing a very great ministry with people. When I met him, he was a young 70-year-old man. He was an aspiring artist. He loved to work in all kinds of mediums, photos and collages and watercolors and pastels. And he was an avid reader. He was teaching himself how to read in French. He was a talented cook. And most of all, he was a wickedly devilish, impish personality. He reminded me of the Leaf King, also called the Green Man, which is very much a part of May Day, also called Green George or King of the Wood, but mostly the Green Man. You don't know him? Well, I'm going to tell you about him a little bit after I tell you a little bit more about Father Dick. Father Dick never wore shoes, no matter the weather. His usual garb were Birkenstocks, without socks, no matter the weather. He had corduroy pants and bright yellow or blue ascots. Remember, he's very British, right? Under his favorite blue Oxford shirts. He cooked wonderfully flavorful meals and delighted me in serving his seasonal specialties. The spring one was oxtail soup. Any of you ever had oxtail soup? Much better than it sounds. And I wasn't vegetarian yet. Maybe that had something to do with it. I think of him often, but more than usual in May. For it was in May and on May Day that he would help me to assemble and deliver May baskets for my family and closest friends. Remember May baskets? Yeah. When I was growing up in South Gardner, we had a long-standing tradition of delivering May Day baskets all around the neighborhood to my neighbor and chums. And that simple act of placing a basket made of brightly colored paper filled with signs of spring, sprigs of greenery, and candy gave me great delight. When I married and moved to a place where the nearest neighbor was a mile away, ringing the doorbell, setting down the basket, and sneaking away without being seen wasn't really possible. But that was the delight of the May Day. However, when I began to share my childhood memory with my Anglican friend, we pledged to present each other with a May basket each day, May Day, that we could possibly do that. It became somewhat of a contest to run up to his room, knock on the door, and escape before he could answer. Or for him to knock on my office door, drop the basket, and run before I could catch him in his Birkenstocks. He was the only other person that I knew who engaged in this trickster behavior on May Day, and I delighted in listening to him talk about his childhood in England when the whole town would high May baskets, dance the maypole, dress a young man up as the Green Man and crown a young woman as the May Queen. And he helped me to research that whole history and exposed me to two really important classic books of religious thought, The Golden Bough by Sir James Frazer and The White Goddess by Robert Graves. In fact, it was there that I learned about the Green Man, which I'll now tell you about. The Green Man, unlike the May King, was not responsible for winning the competitive battle that marked him as the most potent man, the May King, who would then be given the opportunity to mate with the May Queen, a virgin picked by some ritual that marked her as the most appropriate to bring forth spring and mark that recurring time of fertility. The Green Man, or Leaf Man, would be dressed from head to toe in leaves and grasses, and he would impersonate the tree spirit, probably, I imagine, in Birkenstocks. He would lead a procession from the outside of town where the villagers had gone to gather the maypole, where a grass hut had been built in the center of the town, and the Green Man would approach the hut, make a comment about, "Isn't this as lovely as a castle?" cut a door in it, and sit upon a throne that was inside of it. And the community would gather all around him, and he would proceed to hurl insults at every single person in the village. Young, old, didn't matter. He would criticize everybody, the officials, his neighbors, everybody, calling out insult after insult. And then when he had finally finished his tirade, the Frog Flayer, have you ever heard of him? All right, the Frog Flayer would step forward, open a cage full of frogs, pinch them all, one and all, until one croaked. Well, that one that croaked would be flayed and hung on the Green Man's hut, supposedly to bring rain to the community for the growing season. Please don't have your worms take offense. And Father Dick was the Green Man. Without doubt, he could get away with saying the things that no one else could. And though it was criticism, it was a criticism that you could listen to. And that's what people who were in the recovery needed. They needed to hear the hard truths. And he could talk about his experiences, and he could say the things that he had to say. He was that Green Man. And that Green Man serves a good function in any community. They're honest, they're direct, they keep others humble, and they keep it so that we can hear the criticisms and concerns. And that keeps us constantly growing and able to shift and change when our behaviors have us stuck. He was a really, really good friend, and he helped me keep alive a lot of traditions and learn about my cultural roots that celebrated May Day, much like he did as a child. And one of the truth tellings that I cherish is that once I was telling him I always wanted to be a minister. And he said to me, he did not know how or when, but he knew that I had no choice but to pursue the ministry. And he told me, never forget those ancient rituals and rites. They're important. May Day is one of them. And it was many years before I could even begin the process of preparing for ministry, but he never doubted my calling. Now, growing up, I was active in the Gardner, Mass. Unitarian Universalist congregation, and the minister there asked me to preach on a lay worship Sunday. It was going to be May Day, and I had been learning a lot, and I was pretty excited. And when I told my Anglican friend, Father Dick, that I was going to do this, he smiled and said, "Stay right there. Don't move." And he returned a few moments later carrying his black preaching robe. an Oxford style, inky black with short sleeves and well worn by Father Dick through the years of his ministry. And he gave it to me. And he told me he knew ever since he met me, he knew that I would have to answer my call to ministry. And though he intended to give me the robe when I started ministry school, he was going to give it to me now to wear for the May Day service. And that May Day morning, just before I was getting ready to go to the service, I snuck by his room and I left a May basket, as I had for many years. I didn't knock on the door. I knew that I would burst into tears if I did. And I still have that robe. And when I think of it, it causes me to reflect on that mischievous, supportive, wonderful friend. He helped keep two traditions alive for me. One, the tradition and rituals such as May Day really matter. And second, the tradition of ministry. And I suspect we are all here today because someone somehow believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves. Someone introduced us to our deeper roots, be they cultural, historical, familial, and someone told us the truth when we needed to hear it. And we also have that same responsibility to do for others. May we all have such good life companions to journey with us. So we're going to go outside in a few moments, and you're going to dance the maypole if you wish to. I don't think the frog flare or the green man is out there. But I bet, if you thought about it, you can name a green man who graces your life. May it be so. Let us join together in our closing music. As we leave here today, take time to connect with your roots. Take time to revisit the rituals of springtime that bring dance and beauty to your heart and mind. Go forth bringing great joy to every person you meet today and in the days ahead. Breathe in love, breathe out love. So be it.
But let's first extinguish the chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Now please join us outside for the maypole, and Joe will play us out.